You need to tell you.
I was here for 2 years. I was going back. Thank you. I know.
Hello, good evening. I would like to do a sound check, please. Mr. Demikoff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Ms. Wright?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Ms. McNeil? Hello, Ms. McNeil?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Phytros?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Ridgefield Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Burkett Record, Municipal Building, Board of Education offices, and district website. Public participation will be conducted both in person and virtually through Zoom. All public will be muted throughout the meeting. Public participation comments are limited to 5 minutes. The public will be able to both speak and be seen by the board when participating virtually, telephonically, via Zoom. Individuals participating virtually that wish to make comments during public participation will need to raise their hand by clicking the blue hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom window. Individuals participating by telephone that wish to make comments during public participation will need to hit *9 in their telephone to raise their hand. Business Administrator Board Secretary will then unmute individuals one at a time to speak in the order that their hand was raised. I'm going to take a roll call. Mr. Phytros,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons,
Here.
Mr. Gomes, Mrs. McNeil,
Here, and just FYI, Michelle Orth and Berlinda Rodriguez both texted me that they're having trouble getting on.
okay. Dr. Martinez,
Here.
Mrs. Orth is having trouble. Mrs. Rodriguez is having trouble getting on. Mr. Verselli, Mr. Cathcart,
Here.
and President Fernandez.
Here.
Also present, Dr. Barry Haines, Acting Superintendent, Carrie Grabstein, School Business Administrator, Mr. Wayne Demikoff, State Monitor, and Kerry Wright, Board Attorney.
Make a motion, we open the meeting, please. Second. Moving on to our minutes. Approving the board minutes for June 15th, June 29th, retreat on July 14th and July 28th. You pass? I'll second it. The
Have a second?
second.
Are there any questions on the minutes? Seeing none, Mr. Phytros,
I'm sorry, yes. Sorry.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes,
I don't know. Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
is Mrs. Orth on? Mrs. Rodriguez? Nope. Mr. Verselli, Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes. Communications, with trustee, Rodriguez unable to, log in faculties and programs. Subcommittee with social justice, trustee Martinez.
So the Social Justice Committee met on August 1st. Dr. Haines has assigned Dr. Ferraro to be the lead, the in-house lead on that subcommittee. We met on that day. We had several principals were there, several administrators, a couple of parents, and a couple of board members who are also parents were on in the meeting. One of the things that we talked about, which is something that I regret to have repeated here before, is that we have to do a better job of reporting out to the public what gains have been made in this area and what still needs to be done. And so to that end, Dr. Farrar set up 2 additional meetings. one which will take place in September and one in November. And the goal of those two meetings, the immediate goal of those two meetings is to come up with some dates where we could have more community input and more of an open house like we did last year. Thank you.
Buildings and Grounds, trustee Cathcart.
We have a meeting scheduled for April 30th, I believe. I've also called Ken Ochop, the planner, to get a confirmation that he will attend and present on the open spaces. I also want to report that at the last planning board meeting Monday night, they approved 600 units on Challenger Drive, which 110 of those units are two-bedroom apartments. So that's a total of 1,550 units. And Kerry and I have had a discussion about doing some planning for the future.
I also wanted to report on the curtain wall at the high school. I met with the architect and the contractor today, and they assured me that despite the fact that there has been slow progress, that they'll be working double shifts. They are calling in another crew. And they assured me that the classrooms, the window project where the classrooms are, will be completed in time for school. There'll be one corridor that will not be completed, but they will put a makeshift wall up, so no students will have access to that area.
Thank you so much. Moving on to policy, trustee Martinez.
The policy committee met this month and most of our discussion focused on our use of facilities and making sure that they're equitable and even across the board.
Thank you so much. Moving forward to personnel, trustee Gibbons.
Yes, Personnel Committee met last week. We discussed the new hires. We went over exit interviews. And we saw the new hires' resumes. We also discussed paraprofessional turnover in the county and our district as well.
Thank you so much. As a committee, we did not meet for finance and insurance nor negotiations, but I do know we have planned meetings coming soon. Any communications? Okay. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Fernandez. So we have two items on the superintendent's report tonight. The first is a review of some of the amazing, wonderful programs that went on this summer. We spoke about these at the end of last year as the board approved the funding for these programs, looked at the CRISA grants and the title grants, actually put the programs out, approved all the personnel to go on the programs, approved all the extracurriculars. We had some fun additions such as the fine and performing arts. So we had some music and some dance, and we had a lot of kind of club activities, which I can't wait for you to see through the first presentation by Suzanne Hameda and Dennis Muri. And Suzanne, you have the clicker, right? So I'll present from my screen and you can click away. Just point your device at my computer and things should be fine.
Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to present this summer academy to you. It was such an incredible experience. Just to give you a little history, if you don't know, my name is Dennis Muri. I was lucky enough to be working with Alex Quintanilla, Ulysses Encarnacion, and our all-star backbone, Susie Hamida, running this program over the summer. Previously, my summer employment, I worked at an enrichment camp at Fairleigh Dickinson University, which was an enrichment camp, again, for the highest students. What I saw go on here this summer surpassed that amazingly. The things that went on in the classroom, the things that went on interacting with the Meadowlands Center were incredible to see. It was just amazing. Susie put together this incredible presentation for you. I'm going to let her take the wheel. I do have to jump in. There were certain lessons that impressed me so much that I really want to comment on a couple times, but I'm going to let Susie take you through the slide presentation now.
Dr. Haines, could you go to the first slide, please?
I'll try. You are a fast clicker. I'll tell
I
you.
would click, but it's like 27 clicks.
Let's get that.
Okay.
And Mrs. Kelly, can you move the thumbnails out of the screen? Thank you.
Okay, so this summer, we offered several programs. They were the K through 5 Summer Learning Academy, grades 6 through 8 supplemental instruction, grades 9 through 12 credit recovery, ESL supplemental instruction, seal of biliteracy testing, Meadowlands Environment Center programs, and social emotional learning. So we'll go through each of them and we'll discuss how the Meadowlands Environment Center programs and SEL were incorporated throughout all of them. So here's the program enrollment numbers. There were 86 students enrolled at Roosevelt School, 34 enrolled at Grant, and then 111 students total here at the junior senior high school. And the breakdown for that is 47 high school students enrolled in a credit recovery course, 52 junior high students enrolled in supplemental instruction, and 12 emerging bilingual students enrolled in ESL supplemental instruction for a total student enrollment of 231. So we'll start with the K through 5 Summer Learning Academy, which was led by Ulysses Encarnacion and Alex Quintanilla. Students were exposed to English language arts reinforcement, math skills and drills, dance, music, and social emotional learning via summer abacus and readers theater. And the Meadowlands Environment Center was very involved with our K through 5 students, providing STEM learning 1 to 2 times per week at each building, family science nights, Friday field trips, of which there were 5 total, and the mobile food lab. Here is the schedule for our K through 5 students. They arrived between 8:45 and 9 in the morning, and then their day was broken up into 2 blocks, one from 9 to 10:30 and the other from 10:30 until noon. And snack was provided during each block. And then SEL, dance, and music were incorporated in 30-minute sessions. So the next several slides will have pictures of the K through 5 students in action. So you'll see them engaging in learning at the Meadowlands Environment Center and in their classrooms doing social emotional learning, dance, and music. My favorite picture is that one on the left. I think it's adorable.
But tell me a little bit more about that. Why do you think that's adorable?
I think that they're very engaged, and it's nice to see like 2 students are down low, a few students are up high. They're being led by the instructor in the middle. But it's just a very nice in nature inquiry-based learning experience.
So I'm gonna, as the professional too, I'm gonna push in just a little bit and
Sure.
say, thank goodness, because this is what the board supported at re-engaging our students to come back to in-person learning and do inquiry-based science activities. It's so nice to see this as compared to what we've gone through over the past 2 years, to see the kids engage in that. So I 1000% agree with you. Thank you.
And then here are some more pictures. So these are at the Meadowlands Environment Center, and then these are in the classroom with an instructor from the Meadowlands Environment Center. Go. Okay, and now we'll move on to the grade 6 through 8 supplemental instruction. So our junior high students were instructed in the core subject areas, of course, of English, math, science, and social studies. And in addition, the Meadowlands Environmental Center offered the following learning experiences. The highlight was definitely the artificial floating islands, and we have a video that covers that later on. The mobile food lab and the culminating field trip on July 28th. For our high school students who needed to recover credit in one of their courses, we offered English levels 1, 2, and 3, Algebra 1 and Geometry, Biology, Chemistry, and Physics, Spanish 2, as well as Physical Education and Health. And our high school students were also provided brain breaks with social emotional learning and the mobile food lab. And then our emerging bilingual students made great strides in their English language acquisition. They practiced listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English. Vocabulary, prepositions, verb tenses, and adjectives are just a few of the topics covered. And we are very happy that the time well spent this summer will allow our students to more easily adjust to the 2022-23 school year. For social emotional learning with our students here at the junior senior high school, some of the topics covered were growth mindset, emotional regulation, mindfulness, meditation, and relationship skills.
And Suzanne, if you could go back to that list just for a second. Again, some of the grants that came out are very specific. So the America Recovery Plan, the ARP plan, actually has a category for growth mindset, persistence, and perseverance. And it's wonderful to see us using this money in this way in growth mindset programs throughout the summer. Thank you.
Here we have our grades 6 through 8 students doing a popcorn flavoring activity and also an herbal tea activity. And now we will show the video of the artificial floating island release on July 28th. You have the tab up already,
Yeah, which one?
somewhere in the middle. To the left.
Everything go to the left. I think, oh, there it is. Hold on. This is, I don't think the sound is going to be right. So bear with me a second while I pull it up. And then pull up the sound of my computer, probably my mic. Bear with me.
This appeared on NorthJersey.com and also in the Bergen Record on the cover of the local. This was covered well by them, and it deserved to be. It was inspirational. The students had a great time, really learned about the environment.
Yeah, today is a culmination of a set of activities that the Meadowland Environment Center educators have been doing with the Ridgefield Park School District. And we're working with middle school students from grades 6, 7, and 8 on a project that involves artificial floating islands. The students are actually artificial. And today they're going to create their artificial floating islands and float them off here at the Meadowlands Environment Center. We know that they're learning about the fact that artificial floating islands are like living marshes, and they function to help take out the nitrates and the phosphates and fertilizer from the water and bring it up into the plants on the artificial floating islands. And these days, we know we're in the hot days of July, and there have been algal blooms up in the lakes in New Jersey and New York. And artificial floating islands are one way, part of the way that you can help remove the fertilizer from the water. And this is a really important thing for students to learn about. And the islands also form habitats. Turtles and even birds can nest on the little islands, and the roots hang down to the water, and they form habitats for fish. So it's really a way to get them to think about what they can do to help control pollution and to actually maybe alleviate some of the problems from climate change.
I really like the event. I really like that we help the environment in many ways. We're making homes for and wildlife, shelters, foundation, water, and we're really helping the environment by finding bacteria, experiments, microbes, all of that. I actually like the change of even though our actions are not looking at, I really like that we're making small change for the better. We hope that when we just sleep, the streaming is all cleaned up.
So, sorry about that. Go back just a second, Suzanne. That was reported in North Jersey, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I love that people can go see it. And one of the things that I found interesting was we had the same activity last year, and the Meadowlands reported that those same floating islands, or did they show you where those same floating islands they did last year are? They're still in the water and they're still performing that same functions that they were last year. I think that's really cool.
This is just a little summer fun because we know that summer school can be a drag for some students. So courtesy of Mrs. Cavins, we had a snow cone day at dismissal, one of our days. And then we're going to discuss some student work.
These are some of the lessons that I had to jump in and discuss. First of all, our credit recovery kids, one of the things I was super impressed with were, these were kids who were struggling and they were excited to be here. Our attendance was almost perfect. We did not have students. I thought for sure we were going to need a makeup day because, these are students that struggle with those types of things. And we did not need the makeup days that we thought we were going to need. Our attendance was perfect. Kids were interacting. When I walked into the classroom to take these pictures, they were jumping up to show their projects. And again, these are students that struggle that were recommended by their teachers to need the supplemental education. This was one of the first projects that I was lucky enough to see. Mrs. Sheldon killed it. She's up here with two of them. She had her students do a journal. And in that, one of the things is they wrote a note to a teacher who inspired them. This next one was based on a book called Mockingbird. It's about a student with Asperger's syndrome who has trouble grasping metaphors and idioms. So she had the students jump into the place of someone who had to teach someone who struggled understanding those. And they drew physical representations of those idioms and those ideas, like that'll happen when pigs fly. So they drew it so to get a visual understanding and help learning students about it. And again, they couldn't jump up quick enough to show us their work. It was pretty impressive. Here, Mr. Savino took the opportunity to take his supplemental students and teach them the basics of a research paper. Now, when I walked in, he was doing an MLA level research paper, basic introduction. That's what you use for college papers, okay? When I saw this, I said, thank you, because when I get them as seniors, we struggle to teach them like the next level, you're going to be doing MLA papers. And it's cross curriculum because he was applying it to obviously a history research paper, but it would apply to any class they go into. He was doing it on a history subject, but all of our English papers are in MLA format. And he's given these students a step forward that many students wouldn't have. And they were engaged and learning the basics of a research paper that you would do on the next level, which was super. Finally, Mr. Haas took the environmental concept that we were doing with the Meadowlands Center, and he decided to use environmental concepts and teach in his science class how to handle an oil spill. So they actually simulated in troughs an oil spill and how to clean it up and use the string to move it like you would do a cleanup with tugboats and stuff. It was really cool to look at and like I said, and it integrated a lot of the cross-curriculum stuff that we were doing with the Meadowlands Center, with science, with English. And again, the lessons that seem to go cross-curriculum and give these students a head start to the next school year were the ones that really impressed me the most. And like I said, they couldn't jump up quick enough to show you how excited they were about their work. So I said to Miss Amita, I said, I get to present these because they were so awesome. I was so impressed with these teachers that I had to be the one to say something about them. So thank you to those incredible teachers and these students who were so excited about these programs.
All right, so next we'll discuss the Seal of Biliteracy testing. The Seal of Biliteracy is an award given by a school district, or state in recognition of students who have studied and attained proficiency in 2 or more languages by high school graduation. And we are proud to say that 14 students were tested ahead of the school year and will earn the Seal of Biliteracy as follows: 12 in Spanish, 1 in Portuguese, and 1 in Korean. So it was very nice to have the opportunity to provide that testing ahead of the school year. And I think this is my favorite slide. So thanks to the meaningful, tailored instructional environment and supports provided by our general and special education teachers, 100% of our students passed their credit recovery courses. Live and in-person summer school has proven to be more engaging and effective than self-paced online programs that offer little to no support and frankly are just very cold. And so I'd like for us to consider the following qualitative feedback from our teachers. So students developed their note-taking skills and learned to apply mathematics to real physical situations to increase their appreciation and understanding of the physical world. That was from Mel Kellebeck, who taught physics. Kristen Pickenich, who taught Algebra 1 this summer, said that along with all Algebra 1 content standards, students developed self-motivation, communication, and an overall care for understanding basic math skills. I think that's extremely important that she used the word care there, because I think that a lot of our students struggle with math because they have become accustomed to this, way of not caring about it and being frustrated. So it was very nice to hear that. The summer program provided better critical analysis skills, both verbal and written, as well as building greater confidence in terms of oral and written communication. That was from Melissa Iannacone, who taught English 2 over the summer. Bernice Sosa, who taught our grade 6 students, said that skills developed were self-awareness, critical thinking, problem solving, initiative, and adaptability, accessing and analyzing information, applying knowledge obtained to make decisions in real life situations. And lastly, Alexandra Vidal, who taught our 12 emerging bilingual students, said that her students feel more comfortable using the target language. They can ask and answer questions in the present tense. As a result, students will do better in their other subjects. And the summer program is a great opportunity to reinforce students' knowledge while creating a stronger bond with their teachers and classmates. So I really liked the feedback that the teachers provided because it addressed both the content that they needed to master and also all of the social emotional learning that took place this summer.
Okay, before you leave, because we're going to give you thanks, not just you, but the entire program. The teachers were phenomenal. But I know some of the board members might have some questions. My question to you is, well, thank you too. So as you took a picture of some of those students who weren't necessarily engaged during the school year and had to come in for the summer, and then 100% of them, you could tell, were engaged, showed up, attendance was awesome. They all passed their courses. So what was the difference for those kids? What changed this summer that made it so magical that they were all so engaged and passed?
I think their comfort level was much higher. A lot of our students had difficulty this last school year adjusting, and this summer was a really nice, intimate setting where the class sizes were smaller and there wasn't so much hustle and bustle where they were moving around from place to place and stressed about things that, aren't really important. So I think definitely the intimate setting and their comfort level.
They're also, remember, their ability to focus on the subject that they're struggling in the most, just in that particular time, which we're hoping that focus will then, put them in the middle of the pack or maybe even better when the school year starts. If math's your trouble and you're just focusing on math because that's your one credit recovery situation, and you're getting a little more personal attention with the teacher because the group is smaller. You're in there with other kids who are also struggling a little, so you don't feel out of place. And then so many factors. There was a really positive environment down here. So I don't think you can put your finger on any one particular thing, but you take that group of items that you're focusing on what you're struggling on, you're there for that particular reason, and you're not thinking about 6 other subjects. And if you're in the credit recovery, you're not thinking about 6 other subjects, and your focus is just there with a teacher who knows that you're struggling and is really trying to bring you on to that next level. We also told the teachers, because the entire curriculum of a math year can't be covered in that short period of time. We said, what are the tools that they need in there that from the curriculum, the key elements that are going to get them to be successful in the next year? And the teachers took that ball and ran with it. That was why Mr. Savino, I think, took the opportunity to teach the MLA style essay, because that's going to apply to all his next level of social studies, the next level of English. Okay. They really did a great job with focusing on the needs of the students in the next level. So when they were worried about those core concepts, those core ideas, and focused on them in the positive environment with other students who are struggling, and you put those things together, it's a home run. It's a home run.
So, and I'll also say that's a lot of the grants go towards read, writing curriculum, focusing on pacing guides and focus standards. So, that was good. I am remiss. I did announce this to Suzanne Hameda and Dennis Muri. They were our coordinators for the 7 through 12 program. Not present tonight, and I wish they were, are Yuli Encarnacion and Alex Cantanella. They were our coordinators through case through 6. And I kept telling them, you guys need to put photos of yourselves into the slideshows. And what inevitably happens, as Dennis and Suzanne can help you, is you're the picture taker. You never get your own picture in the slideshow. So in addition to the two of you, I just want to make sure the board understands you paid for some outstanding coordinators to bring the positive, successful results that you're seeing tonight to this program, all 4 of them. I think there were some questions from the board.
First of all, thank you for the wonderful presentation and for the work for spending your summer with our kids. I had a question. You had 100% or near 100% attendance and a near 100% 100% pass rate, which is really, really impressive. And I'm wondering, these are the kids that, in some ways were not reachable during the school year, with more resources and more teachers and more counselors and everything. So that struck me, and it seemed like it struck you as well. So I'm wondering if we can expand this a little bit and have you produce some sort of, either an after action report or some sort of lesson learns about pedagogy that can be shared with the district to be used to stimulate some of the classrooms that may not have been able to reach these kids. Like, how can we infuse some of the things that you did in the summer? I know we can't get them all. Kids are distracted and there's competing interests, but how can we get some of the things that happen over the summer and infuse that in our classrooms so that we don't need as many kids in credit recovery and so that more kids are enthused about coming to school?
I think the key to the almost perfect attendance was Mr. Muri's daily phone calls, because sometimes he speaks very fast. And I think that a lot of the parents were just like, oh my goodness, okay, you're right, he's on his way. So again, since we only had 111 students here at the junior senior high school instead of our typical 1,200 during the school year, it made it that much easier to be in communication with every family every single day.
So that might be something for the district to consider, not having Mr. Muri call all the students, but
No, we want them to call every
that might be a
student.
way to get more, maybe parents need that nudge.
Want to thank you both, Mr. Quintanilla, Mr. Encarnacion. Thank you so much for being there for our students, and the program sounded excellent attendance wise, and all the things they learned, SEL, emotional. It just sounded like a great summer. So
Just to touch base on one other thing that Ms. Martinez said is, Dr. Haines already discussed with us making sure that we keep track of these same students to see if next year that they need this program as well. So we are going to have a report and try to track that if those same students happen to wind up back in our program, or if it's a whole group of different students. So we're going to look at those numbers too, and hopefully we'll see whether or not this program did. And again, some of the ideas that went on in there are things that the teachers maybe can use in their classrooms coming up. That those students need more one-on-one, need a smaller environment. I mean, those are things that we can recommend to guidance, in those particular areas. I think that's what we were discussing. How do we get those items, into the classroom in the school year so those kids don't wind up there. But again, those things that I mentioned, that whirlwind of things that kind of all came together, allowing students to focus on that, maybe study skills areas where they spend an extra period working on that particular subject, because when their focus is on their struggles, they tend to improve them.
I'm not allowed to speak for the board, but I'm sure the board will be behind any type of initiatives that the teachers wanted to come up with in that vein.
Yeah, I'll second that. But to bridge on, these two gentlemen just said, you guys took these struggling students and you made, you masked summer school and made it fun. I mean, you think of summer school and you think it's torture, you're sacrificing your summer for the bad deeds or the, you did during the year, but these kids really look like they made a valid effort and a valid connection with every one of their directors.
There was
And-
another aspect of that, as you're saying, is Yuli Melendez did our SEL every day, and she came in with a different like fun activity during the, so she would go into the math class and break it up with some like relaxation things. I think you saw a photo of that. There was like a colored thing on the board where the lights were off and they were doing that. So interactive breaks were also always something fun, something interactive. Throw a snow cone in day from Mrs. Cavins. You know, we were at the front door every morning with the, let's go, 4 more weeks, we're doing this, you know, try to keep it really upbeat. So yeah, that was definitely something that we were trying to, you know, make this not a negative situation in any way. And like I said, what I saw, I was blown away with what I saw. I worked again at an enrichment camp at a university that higher end Bergen County teacher parents were paying a lot of money for, and the education that went on here surpassed it by far, because I think the level of teachers, the certified teachers we had, what they brought to the table and the positivity through the roof. I can't say enough about it.
If Yuli and Alex were here too, I know what they'd say, because I walked into those classrooms and talked to those teachers who have taught this summer program in years past, and they used, you know, the same kind of handouts and almost dittos and worksheets and all those things. Those were all thrown out the door. It was much more interactive, just like Dennis is talking about. And then they had brain breaks too. They had those growth mindsets. They had music brain breaks. They had dance brain breaks. They had snacks. And the teachers are like, it's night and day between what they were doing this summer versus some of the summers in the past. And they were jubilant, just like you were talking about. It's very cool.
I just wanted, Dennis, I want to congratulate both of you and the staff for running a very successful program. And anybody can get my granddaughter out of bed by 9 o'clock, I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
So, and thank you to the coordinators. Thank you to all the teachers, many of whom you saw on the slideshows. I personally want to thank each and every one of them because they devoted a lot of their summer, more than half of their summer, to this program. And it just shows their devotion that we have of the professionals in this district. And I encourage everybody in this room, when you see them, thank them so much for their service to our kids.
Thank
so much.
you.
So the next presentation is our high school principal, Miss Melissa Cavins. And she also has a slideshow to talk about some of the amazing, wonderful upcoming things that we have to look forward to as we open school this school year. And let me share out my screen.
Don't worry, my presentation is only an hour. So before I begin, I would like to also publicly thank Dennis Murray and Suzanne Hamida for their tremendous work. All summer long, I referred to them as the dream team. And I think everybody here that's watching, listening can see why. They truly were a dream team. They worked together so well. They were ahead of everything. Every time I stopped and, hey guys, did you think about, oh yeah, it's already done. We already did it. So I think one of the highlights of my first year as principal was selecting the two of them to run the Summer Academy. They did a wonderful job. So thank you, Susie and Dennis. Very fortunate to work with you. So thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. I'm proud to present to everybody some of our very exciting programs and initiatives going into the 22-23 school year. So to begin, we have our upcoming activities over the next week and a half. We have new teacher orientation next week. We're very excited. We have some new teachers joining us here in this building. I think they're going to be an asset to all of us. They bring different levels of experience and some from industry, and we're very, very fortunate to start fully staffed. We have our 7th grade orientation, and just a fun fact, they are the 33rd 7th grade to start at RPHS. Second fun fact, Mr. Murray, who just presented, was part of the first graduating class of Ridgefield Park Senior High School. So a little history for you. The 9th grade orientation will be held on the same day. They are the 55th 9th grade class to start in this building. Prior to that, it was Washington High School. We have Professional Development Day for staff, 6 and 7. We've got some great activities planned for school opening. And last but not least, the day we're all waiting for, Thursday, September 8th, all of our students come back. So let me share some exciting initiatives that we have for this year. First up, we have our initiative for Character Strong. So before I go into this, I'd like to thank last year's SEL committee led by Dr. Ferraro, as well as the other elementary principals, Ms. Hernandez and Mr. Cata. They introduced Character Strong into the elementary schools and had great success with it. So much so that in talking about what we wanted to do this year for our 7th and 8th graders, this is a developmental time where students need character education. They need social emotional learning. So it was a no-brainer to continue the Character Strong curriculum based on the fact that our students have already worked with it and had success with it and liked it. So character education includes different competencies, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, decision-making, and also navigating conflict. I think that's a very important skill for everyone to learn, particularly at the middle level. This Character Strong model, they've been wonderful to work with. They're very professional. This also includes professional development for the staff. So on our opening days, our 7th and 8th grade team is going to be part of this Character Strong social emotional professional development because we are going to implement this through the classroom. So we're very excited about that. Along with implementing such a large initiative, I think this is a good time to mention that we are reinstating a stipend position from the RPEA guide. It's called a teacher dean. And in this iteration of a teacher dean of students, for this particular one, is dean of students 7th and 8th grade programs and initiatives. And this person will be focusing on the lead of Character Strong implementation. Along with that, some of the things we would like to continue and things we would like to reinstate from pre-pandemic are working collaboratively, of course, with the 7th and 8th grade class advisors to plan and execute activities specific to 7th and 8th graders, not limited to, but including assemblies, which we already have an excellent one booked for Week of Respect, guest speakers, social activities, opportunities for informal bonding, and academic support opportunities as well. 2 of the initiatives that we are bringing back that were pre-pandemic are the homework club. And those of us who have been around the school for a long time have Mrs. Augie to thank for the homework club. It is an after-school supervised hour in the media center, and it's where mostly 7th and 8th graders come. They can do their homework, and they have tutoring available from National Honor Society students. So that was a wonderful initiative that we had in the past, and it worked very well, and we're so happy to bring it back. Another initiative that started pre-pandemic are team meetings for the grade level teachers. So an important part of any educational system is to have connectivity and collaboration. So this year we are going to reinstate what started before pandemic to have meetings of the 7th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers to not only collaborate on cross-curricular initiatives, but discuss any supports or concerns or any further initiatives for students to help them find success. Another initiative going into this year is a school-wide positive behavior recognition program. Some of you may know this as PBIS, but I'm not quite calling it that. I want to create a culture where our students are recognized and rewarded for doing good. There's so much positive in this building, and I think we need to turn our attention to that. So the focus of this kind of a initiative is buy-in from the staff, buy-in from the students, and consistency. The focus is not academic, it's focused on kindness, responsibility, and respect. This is research-based. Research shows that public display and delivery of recognition has a powerful modeling effect. So when students see other students getting recognized for being kind, for doing the right thing, for stepping up, they say, you know, I want to be part of that. I want to do that too. The thing that makes it meaningful for students, of course, is the rewards. So the rewards can be social, they can be tangible, they can be activity, but again, the consistency is key. And I think that you'll find that not only does this support what the young adolescent mind needs, but all students, and I think all human beings. I think deserve to be recognized for doing positive things. And I would love to see this initiative, take flight and have a ripple effect over years to come in this school, that when we see positive things happening, we recognize it, we reward it. Another initiative I'm very excited about: teen mental health first aid. So I learned about this earlier in the school year last year. And when the information came out for applications for the teen mental health high school initiative program, I said, okay, this is it. So I completed the application and we were selected. I'm thrilled. So what this is, it's an opportunity that's provided in partnership with the New Jersey Department of Human Services and the Mental Health Association in New Jersey. And there are several goals in this initiative. The essence is that 2 staff members will be trained as teen mental health first aid instructors. And through this 2-year initiative, will receive support and materials from those 2 governing agencies that I mentioned. Another portion of this initiative is that 10% of our staff will become trained in youth mental health first aid. Now, I'm a very lucky person, because when I sent this out to staff at the end of the year, I said, just let me test the waters. Has anybody A, heard of it, or B, maybe interested? And overwhelming response from our staff across all content areas, all grade levels, to be part of this initiative for our students. So what is it exactly? It's an evidence-based training program for teens, specifically in grades 10 through 12. It teaches teens to identify, understand, and respond to signs and symptoms of mental health and substance abuse challenges and crisis among friends and peers. As we know, many teens will often turn to their friends for help. And sometimes if you're, even if you're not a teenager, sometimes it's hard to know what to do. And this will provide the tools, the skills to have the supportive conversations, but also know how to get them the help of a responsible adult. So we're looking forward to rolling out this initiative with our 11th grade students this year and continue for years to come. So when our students graduate Ridgefield Park High School, they will not only have teen mental health first aid training, but they also senior year get their CPR and AED certification. So we're really excited about this. Another initiative for this year that we're thrilled about, and I think goes very well with some of the board goals and the social justice resolution, is we have developed a partnership with Sylvan Learning Center. And through this, we are going to be able to offer SAT prep to our students. So the logistics of it, we're going to have an intensive session. I sent a survey out to our rising seniors, what days and times work for you. So we're able to accommodate their schedules. A lot of our students work, a lot of our students participate in activities. So we're going to have an intensive session in September, 2 time options for seniors that are preparing for the October 1st SAT. And then we're going to do this again late winter, early spring for interested juniors preparing for the May 2023 administration. And I say this knowing that now not all colleges require the SAT for admission, but I think it's important, and I think it supports all of our goals as a district to provide our students with the same access and advantages that other students, their peers elsewhere, do get. So I'm looking forward to this. We did have a number of seniors that expressed interest in it, and we're happy to see this happen. This year, we have a new program, new course, AP Computer Science A. So I'm going to thank Mr. Smith, Mr. Brian Smith, and Mrs. Armental for taking the lead on this. So Mr. Smith was given a seed grant for this AP Computer Science A through the University of Texas. And through this grant, it provided him professional development and access to teach their curriculum. He gets support for an extended period of time for implementing the curriculum. And this provides another avenue for our students to continue studying computer science, which, as we all know, is an incredible industry to be in right now, but it's also an opportunity to earn AP credits. So those of you who might be in the know about computers, the difference between Computer Science A and Computer Science Principles, they're both AP courses, but there is a slight difference. Computer Science A focuses on Java as their programming language and focuses on problem solving and object-oriented programming. So just in case anybody was wondering about that. another grant that we received this year. I'm very excited to tell you about this. So we are the recipients of the second year in a row, actually, of the Rachel Ray Foundation Pro Start Grow Grant Award. And Laura Leader, our culinary teacher, took the lead on this. And I'm proud to share, Ridgefield Park is one of 38 high schools in the nation to get this grant. This is a big deal. So Pro Start is a program of the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation. And it's found in almost 2,000 secondary and tech schools. And the purpose of this is to teach culinary techniques, restaurant management skills for lifetime foundation and careers in this industry. So the way this is going to play out in our school this year, I'm very excited. So with this grant, we were able to purchase more tools and supplies for culinary creative cooking 2 and 3 to enhance their catering units, and our vision to perhaps have a Scarlet Bake Shop and have an opportunity for students to get real world experience and have the opportunity to do planning, inventory, the baking, the creation, and perhaps a little coffee shop now and then. So we're very excited about this. And then this is not something new, but worth mentioning here is that our students have the opportunity in these programs to earn their ServSafe certification as well as dual enrollment credits. So our culinary 2 and 3 are dual enrollment. They can get college credits and they can get their ServSafe certification. Thanks to Ms. Susanna Rodriguez, our supervisor of world languages, ESL and BSI. She is spearheading the ongoing continued professional development for our staff to support multilingual learners or emerging bilinguals. Those are two synonymous terms right now for what we used to say for ELLs or ESL students. This summer, we hosted Barbara Tedesco and BJ Franks. Now, I'm part of the ESL world. That's where I come from. And Barbara Tedesco and BJ Franks are like the legends of ESL. So having them here was kind of like having stars in our building. It was very exciting. So they were here this summer and they conducted a 4-day workshop with teachers from the district from various levels and content areas. So it wasn't limited to just this school, but it was teachers from elementary and secondary level, various content areas on sheltered English instruction. And for those of you who don't know, sheltered English instruction is a set of teaching strategies that are designed for content area teachers to lower the linguistic demand of the content, but not compromising the integrity of the subject matter. So it's a very important technique and approach. And I think we had 2 of the best here to start us on this journey. Continuing that this year is our professional development with Dr. Guzman, who will continue the sheltered English instruction for content area teachers. So we're thrilled to continue this. Our teachers had excellent things to say about it. At one of our upcoming PD sessions on opening days, we're actually going to have some of our staff members turnkey what they learned to other staff members. So very exciting. Here's something new. So obviously we have a school website, and I think, after going through this first year, I think one of the things that was a recurring theme was communication and information. How do we find out information? Well, how do you know this is going on? So I feel like this is something we could improve upon. So I happen to enjoy creating websites. So we have a new section of our main website that is now on one of the main buttons that you see on our homepage, and it's called Scarlet Nation Info. And yes, we know Scarlet Nation is Rutgers, but it works for us too. So on the Scarlet Nation Info page, which looks like this, it is a home base for a couple of very important things pertaining to our school. So the first section of major importance is the FAQ, frequently asked questions. Right now, those questions are written with the audience of parents and students, especially students who are starting here for the first time. And it's answering questions such as, who do I go when I need this? Or how do I notify the school my student will be absent? So we have answers to the most commonly asked questions there. We have another tab, and of course, I hope you all go on this page and explore. We have another tab, the news. This is where on a daily basis, our morning announcements that we read in the school are going to be posted there, because something that happens often. It's not Ridgefield Park, it's everywhere. It's teenagers. They don't necessarily listen to the morning announcements, and then parents will say later on, oh, my kid never told me. So I feel like if we can bridge that gap of information, so the information that's shared with the students on a daily basis will be posted there for people to see and review. We've also added a tab for the PTSA. So there's information there about the PTSA, the membership, how to join, upcoming events, etc. So I'm very excited about this website. Tomorrow, if you are a parent of a student in the district, you will be getting before the weekends a welcome email from me and also an introduction and link to this page. So I invite anybody who is listening or hearing this right now, if there's something on there that is not, or something missing, please email me, let me know. I'm happy to add it to the page. We'll continuously update it based on the needs at the moment. And last but not least, I want to wish everybody, students, staff, parents, the community, a happy, healthy, productive school year. I think it's going to be a great one. There's a good energy abound. I think I've had some really great conversations with people over the past few weeks, running into students that are excited to come back, running into teachers that are, excited to be back and get started. And I did add a bullet point about communication. I'm saying this to everybody to hold myself accountable. My goal for myself, for my students, for my staff, to the parents is communication. I think open communication is the best thing that we can practice as an organization. So yes, a website isn't going to cure all, but it's a good start. So I encourage anybody who has any questions about anything ever, contact me. My email's on the website. You know how to, find my number on the directory. Please call me, please reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation, have a meeting. I love talking to people. Maybe we run into each other in IGA, that happens too. So I ask the same in return for just open communication. If anybody ever has a question about anything, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to either answer, chat, or help you find the right person if I'm not the one. So in conclusion, it is always a great day to be a Scarlet. Thank you so much.
So I want to thank Mrs. Cavens again, because I think we could all agree she brings a huge passion and commitment to the 7 through 12 school. She's great at ensuring our students feel included as part of a larger learning community. You saw that in the summer programs, and that's what helps our students be supported, feel a sense of a community, and be successful. So thank you for all that, Mrs. Cavens. Much appreciated. I believe 2 other small things as far as the superintendent report. The first one is we will be following, I'll get an announcement out about this soon, but we will be following the COVID protocols that we followed at the end of last year, which as we open school means we are not quarantining, we are not contact tracing, and masks are optional. I have some other announcements from personnel, and that concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you so much. Simone, are you able to unmute Trustee Rodriguez?
Hello.
Are you there,
Hello?
Ms. Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Thank you, Simone and President Fernandez, for getting me on. Can I give my report right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Simone and President Fernandez. Okay, so so Mrs. Cavens, thank you for your report, and also Fernandez, Suzanne Rodriguez. And I feel that the district is definitely moving forward. And Mrs. Cavens, she encouraged communication. And I just want to give my report, the faculty program report, but then also the subcommittee report. Let me start off by saying that on July 22nd, as the chair of the Faculty and Programs Committee, I met with Dr. Haines and other stakeholders. In attendance was Dr. Mercedes Haines, Laura Wood, and of course, Acting Superintendent Dr. Barry Haines. And the focus was strengthening the homeschool connection. And as a subcommittee of the Faculties and Programs Committee, Dr. Haines recommended Natasha Hernandez and also Suzanne Rodriguez and Michelle Gonzalez as being part of the subcommittee. We would like to encourage literacy nights, family nights, and also we discussed the YouTube channel space that Mrs. Ciara was created, but he already created, and it's a YouTube channel, and it hopefully will be up and running by September. Please be on the lookout for the link to the district, and that's a YouTube channel. Videos will be posted, literacy videos, Board of Education meeting videos. Also, there was a conversation of having possibly each school upload videos and keeping parents informed. Also, athletic videos and academic videos that focus on our academics and our district goals. And on August 2nd at 6 p.m., all the trustees were present, in addition to Michelle Gonzalez, the Director of Special Services, also Dr. Ferrara, Natasha Hernandez, and Dr. Barry Haines. We discussed the new ELA novels, also the health proposed draft curriculum, as promised to the community. We discussed the community questions from the July 14th and presentation with Mrs. Tasmin Weisberg. And also we went into detail in regards to the NJDOE standards that address the health curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to monitors report.
Yes.
Mr. Demikoff.
Okay, in regard to the legal fees that resulted from the action taken by the board, more specifically, the pending litigation with Dr. Bender, the Porzio board attorney fees are now at $68,079.65 through their July 2022 billing. The state monitor attorney fees remain at $1,911, and the Summit Risk Insurance Company's attorney's fees remain at $20,000 for a total of $89,990.65 as of August 24th, 2022. And that's all I have to report today.
Thank you so much for your monitors report. Like to move on to citizens' comments on agenda items.
Good evening. Before we begin public comment, as the chair of the policy committee, I want to remind everyone that we will continue to have two public comment periods, one on agenda and one off agenda items. There's a sign-up sheet at the podium. We will call your name in the order that you sign in. Each member of the public will have 5 minutes to speak during each comment period. Time cannot be transferred to other individuals. The public comment period will be 1 hour for on-agenda items and 1 hour for non-agenda items. Thank you for your cooperation and support.
Janet Malou.
Good evening, miss. How are you?
Okay, Janet Malul, 163 East Grand Avenue. I've got a lot of questions, actually. I'll have to make them statements, even though they really are questions, because I know I will not get answers tonight, nor probably any timely manner. I'm looking at the personnel agenda. I think it's page 3. It's employment of an athletic trainer for the, I guess for the school year, September through June. I guess that doesn't include if there was any summer needs, for $70,901. But then there's on FI 53, there's also an approval for a substitute certified athletic trainer to the tune of $60 an hour. Estimated cost $9,300. I figured that comes out to, if I did my arithmetic right, 155 hours of substitution on top of a full position.
I can explain that.
Okay,
The athletic trainer was scheduled to start earlier, but he's not being released from his district that he's working for now. So he won't be starting with us, I think, until mid-September. So those
okay,
hours are additional hours, and those hours with SD Game Day will go through the entire year for other occasions where we need substitutes.
okay. So this was a specific issue. It's not something
Correct.
that's the norm.
Yes.
Okay. Next. I'm looking at, I don't know where this begins from. It's the consulting agreement for ELLC Consulting. According to what I'm reading here, get to the right page, we are hiring a company that will be for professional development, educational leadership and learning center, will provide professional development and on-site instructional coaching and research-based best practices and instructional strategies. This professional development and coaching is designed to support learning acceleration in English language arts and related practices. One, I'm kind of curious that we actually are hiring a company to do 40 days at $54,000. $1,350 a day. I knew I should have become a consultant when I retired. I'm curious why this is not, why we're hiring an outside firm to do this. Wouldn't this fall under Director of Curriculum?
So Mrs. Malul, I will answer all of your questions at the end. Briefly,
Yes.
this consultant has been employed by the district for at least 6 years, and it's an ongoing annual reoccurring expense. But again, I'll answer a more complete answer at the very end of your questions.
Okay. It just seems like we're spending money left and right, and I don't know where it's all coming from. Well, I do know, it's my taxes.
No, that's coming
or
from
that's a grant?
Title I.
Okay.
And this is a mix of Title I, CRISA, which is ESSER 2,
Okay,
and we have not touched ARP for this specific expense.
okay. This attendance and detention coordinator. I'm trying to figure out, it was known as busing and detention coordinator, so it's just a new title, but the same position. That's another question there. The Dean of Students for morning supervision. I'm guessing that's a new stipended position. And the 7th and 8th grade program. I'm assuming there's also a candidate for this position. I really would be interested to know how much 7th and 8th grade experience they have. And who is, if this person, if it's stipended, so this person, I assume, has some kind of teaching position or whatever, what happens when during class time or during when that teacher is not available and a kid has needs? Is there anybody that they're going to be able to go to that's going to actually be able to address those children's needs?
Thank you, Ms. Malloy.
5 minutes already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you so much for your comments.
there'll be more.
We look forward to it.
Mrs. DeSantis?
Good evening.
Susan DeSantis, 15 Homestead Place. BG4. We're going to spend $11,500 on a capacity study when all you have to do is measure the rooms and find out what the state allows you per inch per student or foot per student.
Mrs. DeSantis, it's really more to decide what we're using efficiently and what we're not using, because we have so many preschool disabled children coming in and we're running out of space. And with the new construction in the neighborhood, it's for an architect to give us a professional opinion about that.
Okay, thank you. Preschool education aid grant submission. We're just submitting the grant for the position we already have for the program we don't have. I see we have 4 more resignations. We have 2 deans of students. What exactly are the vice principals doing? One is supposed to be in charge of discipline and the other one in charge of testing. P14, you're rescinding Nicole Pucciarilli and Kelly Thompson as Data Technology Coordinator and Director of Curriculum Assistant. I guess we didn't need them in the first place. Why would you be rescinding them? 6-period assignments. 43 teachers have 6-period assignments. That seems astronomical. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. DeSantis?
Good evening.
At DeSantis, 15 Homestead Place, Ridgefield Park. First, I'd like to thank Mrs. Cavins and the 2 presenters about the summer program. Mrs. Cavins has some wonderful ideas for this year. The presentation was very good. The summer program was very successful. I am glad the board supported, superintendent supported these programs moving forward that Dr. Bender brought to us, and also that in the case of the high school in 7th and 8th grade, that Ms. Seaman also was involved in. I think the presentations were terrific. I'd like to thank the staff that was involved and congratulate the students. Mr. Fernandez, who actually hit it on the head, making summer school fun, not a stigma, not a chore, not a punishment. So I think good job on that. There's a few things, and I don't want to try and repeat anything that's been brought up already. So just quickly, is the preschool program dependent on the success of getting the grant?
There will be a discussion about the PEA grant. I'll answer those questions together.
Okay. The second question I have is on FI 44. What exactly is involved with the correction plan, action plan? Is it going to be made public? Is it available to see?
There is an attachment on the website, I believe. Basically, that was just a follow-up from the state audit that was done in 2016, and there weren't many findings. One had to do with calculations for the resource room for billing Little Ferry. Another one had to do with ethics trainings for the board, ethics training, for the board members, for the board members. And lastly, there was one payment that was inadvertently issued, I think incorrectly, to an employee for retirement or payout, and the monies have since been collected back.
Okay, thank you. I think I had one more on agenda, and I just want to check. No, I guess it really is off agenda, so I'm gonna come back up. Thank you.
Mrs. Gottlieb?
Hi, Leslie Gottlieb, 464 Liberty Street, apartment 102, Little Ferry. two questions. FI 54, where they're opposing the increase in the health insurance. I noticed that Little Ferry has the exact same item on their agenda for tomorrow night. Is this some sort of coordinated effort to oppose the health insurance
It
increase?
is, yes, it's statewide, actually. School boards is encouraging every district to pass this resolution and send it to the governor's office, the senators, assemblymen, just to oppose the, very large increase in health benefits for 2023.
So, but you haven't gotten any specific feedback on that because you haven't sent it yet.
Correct.
Okay. The other question is, I see the job description for your 7th and 8th grade dean of students, or whatever you want to call it. But one of the duties Ms. Steeman had was working with the 8th graders in Little Ferry to help them, the ones that'll be coming over. And I don't see a bullet point for that anywhere in that job description or where that's going to fall, because it's still an important thing to continue working to work with the 8th graders over in Little Ferry that are coming to Ridgefield Park to do things like shadow for a day or go to the sporting events and get them acclimated and make them decide to come here if they want. So I don't know where that's going to fall now. And that's all I have.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gottlieb. Okay. Moving on to resolutions.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah,
Do you hear me
yes,
now?
Ms. Rodriguez, how are
Okay.
you?
Good. So I
Just
so
doing a sound
moved
check?
Yes, sound check.
Okay.
Are we
problem.
moving resolutions now?
Yes, ma'am. If you'd like to pass on the faculties and programs, please.
Yes, yes. Thank you for your patience. I so move FP 1 through FP 13.
I second it.
Are there any questions on FP 1 to FP 13? Seeing none. Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros. I believe you have to abstain on FP 3.
Mr. Phytros, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, I abstained from FP3. Sorry.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes on all, but I abstain from FP 13.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
is Mrs. Orth still on? No.
It couldn't connect.
Mr. Marcelli's not here, and President Fernandez.
Yes. Buildings and grounds, would trustee Cathcart please?
I move BG 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Are there any questions on BG 1 to BG 4?
Just one, and it truly is just a question. The backup for the solutions architecture referenced an earlier study. And if Dave Cathcart, if you have that, or Carrie, it would be great to just share it with the boards that we have the basis before they come in and do the rest of the assessment.
I don't believe so. I believe this is the first one we're going to do, and it's basically future planning.
Okay, maybe I misread the attachment. I'll read it and then just send that one section to you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros. You have to abstain on BG 1 and BG 2.
All right, so yes to 3 and 4, please.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes. Finance and Insurance with Trustee Martinez. Could you please do us a
I so move F1 through F56, 57.
Second.
Are there any questions on FI 1 to FI 57?
Yes, I think Dr. Haines was going to give a little bit more information on the PEA grant, and what that impact is. The way I understood it was it's to add 7 general ed students, but requires that we expand our special needs pre-K to full day. And I'd like to understand what that impact is, including the removal of one of the classrooms or repurposing of one of the classrooms, and having the computer lab be a drop-in as opposed to a classroom.
And thank you, Mrs. McNeil, because I, like you, am interested in having a discussion about this, as we talked about earlier. In my position, I've supplied the board with a lot of information about the PEA grant, but I'm also of the mindset of many board members that it's been frustrating because the state only released new guidelines in mid to late July, which then the consultant that the board hired and the new position of assistant director of early childhood had to change some of their original plans. For example, I personally told the board last year that we were looking forward to obtaining a PEA grant, that the grants were due sometime in August and September, and that if we were successful, we would open one classroom in January of 2023. When the grants were announced, and this was after our first board retreat in July, the state had changed that to say, you must apply for the grant on August 1. You will be informed of the award of the grant by September 1, and you must have a classroom open by October 5th, which is very challenging, a very challenging timeline. Further, if you don't open a classroom by October 5th, any funds this year cannot be used for anything else, and you'll have to wait for next year. The last piece of information there is you have to choose a partner site by October 5th, prove that you can successfully open the classroom. And if we are successful in obtaining the grant, by November, they require the submission for next year to continue successfully expanding the program. I want to go back to a little bit of expanding the program and some background of the grant too. So about 1.5 years ago, November 2021, we polled our community because we felt there was a need for early childhood education, and 180 families with children who were age 3 and 4 responded and said overwhelmingly, it takes up 4 pages of the grant submission, by the way, overwhelmingly, we need this in this district. And every day I'm reminded of that, my office gets phone calls and the assistant director of early childhood gets phone calls. And we see today there was a man who brought a 3-year-old from Newark, said, I'd like to enroll in your pre-K program. We don't have universal pre-K. He was confounded. And like many of the phone calls we received in our office, we had no recourse. We couldn't give him any solutions. The grant that's on the resolution for proposal tonight is a very modest grant. As I informed the board last year, 1 classroom, 1 proof of concept, 1 goal of partnering with a partner site so that we can prove to this community that we can successfully open a 1 classroom with 15 students for age 3 and 4-year-olds. In return, the state provides us with $15,500 for each of those seats. So we would be awarded, if we are successful, with about I think it's $235,000 or $235,000 with state awarded grants. And magically, those 15 students, their parents do not have to pay tuition this year. They are granted, and likewise, the teacher who's currently in that partner program, they're not one of our teachers, but at the current partner site, their salary gets paid, their curriculum gets paid for, their professional development gets paid for, and there's an articulation opportunity to talk about how those 15 students as pre-K students now come into our kindergarten with all the kind of universal screening that we expect that we don't currently have. Some other information about the Universal Pre-K grant, as it's called under the PEA, the Early Childhood Expansion Act. And that is, they only fund general education classrooms. But if you have special needs classrooms, as we do, they expect all of your classrooms to go full day. And there's an equity issue that we have in the district, unfortunately, right now. Some of our early childhood classrooms for disabled and special needs students are full day and some aren't. We do have a program at Roosevelt School that currently has an AM PM session, and the AM session is special needs disabled students and the PM session is inclusion students. And if we are successful in getting the grant, those programs would go to full day students. Again, it's an issue of equity. I think one of the people, I think it was the DeSantis, asked about the question, if we are not successful with the grant submission, does anything change? We can't move forward with anything if we're not successful with the grant submission. Oppositionally, if we are successful with the grant submission and the board supports it, in October 5th, we would invite 7 students who went through a lottery process a few weeks ago. We'd invite those 7 students to join 8 students who are already at the partner site, who are already by law Ridgefield Park residents. And we'd create the first partner site 15 student education opportunity to supply this district with the first fully funded free preschool education for general education students. Again, it's a small step that we're proposing that could lead to bigger things. We had a Department of Education person come and check out our partner site. Some guidelines for the partner site: they have to have an outdoor playground that's of a certain square footage. They have to have an indoor instructional space that's 950 square feet. They have to have entrances and exits, just like any classroom that allows for emergency exits. They have to have bathrooms that cater to 3 and 4-year-olds. And you know what that's like. They have to have a separate boys and girls bathrooms contained within that space. And as we looked at resources and sites in Ridgefield Park for our Ridgefield Park residents, there were not many that by October could meet all those needs. I say by October because if we are successful and open something in October, that opens the doorway for us to continue expanding, as the state said, and as our consultant says, that opens the doorway for you to expand to asking that partner site to create another classroom and another and another, because the grant is all predicated on the fact that at least 50% of your universal pre-K is housed outside of your district through partner sites. And in the partner sites that are successful of this, that we've looked at, they start as a proof of concept, as this proposal is, for 15 students. And then in the next year, they ask that partner site to go out and remediate classrooms and do the construction and everything that they're getting paid for, so they can open up 2 or 3 classrooms. That could mean they lease space in the community. That could mean they retrofit some of the existing space that they have. But it means that the onus is on the partner site to help you in partnering to expand the program and moving forward. And certainly in Ridgefield Park, the onus can't be on us because we don't have classrooms. So Mrs. McNeil asked about if this resolution is successful, the impact that it would have that is imposed upon us by the requirements of the grant. And yes, that's true. Right now, we have 12 additional students, 12 additional pre-K disabled students who were just assessed over the past couple of weeks that are in need of expanding into the program. And because of the grant, because that program has to be full day, and we don't have any other rooms in our district, especially with a bathroom, the requirement of all age 3 and 4 classrooms is the bathroom. The only opportunity we had was at Lincoln School, which already has housed many of our 3 and 4 disabled programs, to expand to a disabled program there and to move a 5th grade teacher upstairs so that we could expand the classroom. That's what we came to a conclusion of. Mrs. McNeil, I think I answered your questions, but if there are any others, I'm very happy to engage in this discussion this evening.
Yeah, you made one statement and I don't know if it was just, I heard it wrong or but you said we had to apply by August 1st to get approved by September. So did we already apply, or did you mean we have to apply by September 1st?
No, we were required to submit a grant application, which is on the application that you received. We were required to submit that.
So we are retroactively approving something that's already been done.
We are retroactively approving a grant application, which you can undo if the board does not approve it. That is correct.
Can I ask a couple of questions? One is, if we don't get this grant now, what would be the reapplication process, or like what happens next?
So again, we'd start over in November. Let's just follow Mrs. McNeil's question. We'd rescind the grant. We'd say, no, we don't want this, and we're not applying for $235,000 to open up a 15-student classroom. We'd say no to that. And in November, we'd probably submit exactly the same thing so that we could open up a 15-student classroom next September. And again, wonder if we would be approved next September to open up 15 students. As we've been informed by our consultant, and our mindset is, we want to start this small. We want to be successful. We want to open one classroom with 15 students. So we would reapply and do that same thing for next September.
So Dr. Haines, you asked if you had answered all my questions, and I think there was one that you didn't, which is the requirement to expand the current pre-K for our disabled population. We've applied for this grant. We're going to find out sometime in September whether or not we get to the existing pre-K and to Lincoln School, and what is the cost impact of that. Because whether we get the grant or not, if we do all of that work, we set up the expectation for those families that it's full day, we're tied to that change.
Well, the board has the right to rescind the application at this point and not move forward with any changes, at which point you're correct. We would not change anything about the first grade classroom or the computer lab upstairs. We would not partner with the partner site. We would tell the 7 students that we don't have room for them in our district. You're right. We would stop. We would halt.
I understand that. My question is, if we approve and go forward, what is the cost implication to because we're approving the grant, we haven't found out whether or not we have it. I'm not familiar with the approval rate. Is it a done deal because we've applied, we're going to get it, or is it a 50-50, or what are the odds of us getting it? But what is the other decisions that we have had to make in order to accommodate these 15 students? So it's 7 new that have already been selected through some lottery, 8 that are already enrolled at the site. So these 15 students would be paid for by the grant, but the district will be paying to go full day for not just the 12 new special needs pre-K, but the total special needs population. So what is that expense?
The great, okay,
my
and thank you for the clarification. No, it's a great question. So, obviously we had to consider this too. And one of the resolutions, so one or two? No, it's one. One of the resolutions, which Mr. Demikoff and Mrs. Grabstein and I had to grapple with, is to open up the first grade classroom at Lincoln School. The major expense was to hire a new teacher. So you'll see it's either the board resolution and I'll be happy to explain this on the new business resolution, hiring a new preschool disabled teacher. She's on step one for that classroom that will have disabled students in it. And Mr. Demikoff and I worked that out, that was coming from a position that the board approved back in March that we are not filling, and that would be the science coach position, because right now some of that science instruction, and goes back to a question I think Mrs. Malul had about the coach. It goes back to a consultant position that's currently being paid out of grant funds to provide professional development to our K-4 teachers in science education. And because we have a consultant filling that role, we agreed we're not filling a full-time science professional development provider within the district. And instead, we would use that money to hire this teacher for a full-day teacher. That's the largest impact.
Right, so I'm looking at that, and that's a roughly $80,000 position, just slightly under. And
I believe it's 59, Diane. Ms. McNeil.
is it P36?
But I believe it's in new business, Ms. McNeil.
I'm looking at new business. P36 is special education teacher placed on step 12 MA.
No, I'm sorry. P36 is grant school. That's that was an inclusion. That's an inclusion. That's not the position. Let me find it. Bear with me a second. It's P37. That teacher will be placed at Lincoln School. That is Carrie Bartnicki, special education teacher in Ridgefield Park Public Schools. I should say. Right, it doesn't say step one because she's in the process of getting her CE certificate of eligibility. She would be hired as a substitute teacher at the beginning of this year with subcert. And then once she obtained her CE, she'd be hired into the district as if all of this is successful, she'd be hired into the district as a full-time teacher in that position.
So this is
And when do we hear back from the August application requiring us to be ready to go for October? And if we were not to approve it, when do we hear back from the November application? I imagine if the application deadline for the next school year's November, the approval would be.
Both correct. So again, the requirement was August 5th or 6th, I think the grant had to be in, and the state said that they would notify all school districts by the beginning of September. I've since heard that it might even be the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So we are hoping they hold to their timeline, because obviously, and again, Mrs. McNeil, this is just as frustrating for me hearing this from the state imposing these tight deadlines that it is for you. It's a frustrating position to be in. I wish they had held simply back to we apply in August, we might open something in January. They don't allow us that. So we applied in August, we should hear back within a few days and then have to open something by the requirement by October 5th.
And the November application, regardless of whether or not we go forward with this one, presumably we would apply in November for next year. When do we anticipate that we would hear back on that.
And I don't have that in front of me. I'm sorry. I'd like to think it's someplace this year, but that's conjecture on my part. I don't know.
And you made the comment, Dr. Haines, about I don't want to say the best we could do, but the most realistic, achievable option that we could do in this school year was with this one partner site because of all of the requirements. Is there, and you mentioned their potential ability to expand, has that been reviewed? Like, is that something that for next year we would expand to more?
Absolutely, yes. So one of the reasons we chose the partner site and engaged into discussions, they already have a second room that could be used as a second classroom. That partner site invited the Department of Education in because just like the existing classroom, it had to be approved by the Department of Education for an early childhood classroom, and it passed. And that's why it's easy to partner with them and open this. The second classroom needs some retrofitting, which again is on them, but we would be excited to do that. And they did start talking about extending beyond that because we need that. We're talking 200 students over a period of 3 to 5 years would be our goal. This would be small, but then if successful by October 5th, we'd look to submit in November to open up hopefully 2 more classrooms in September, knowing what those spaces already were.
Dr. Haynes, can I ask real quick?
Please.
One of the things that was presented, I guess when a couple of the principals did their presentation on whether this was feasible or not, was, the word cost neutral was originally thrown around a little bit. And I'm wondering if at any point, any of these grants will pay for the salary of the director. And if I'm reading it right, so we're incurring 2 expenses. One is the salary of the director, which sounds like we're gonna that's gonna be on us. And another one is that as much as we grow with a general education preschool program, we need to equal that in our special. Not that it'll be the same number, but we need to make it available to as many kids, potentially.
Right. And again, I have to thank the board for these questions because it's been difficult getting information out, as you know. So as we look at other districts who partner this, you can go to Bogota and look at this. In the first year, the state is really pushing you to pass along the amount of money that they're supplying you to your partner site so they can build it up and be successful and again, show a proof of concept. So, and Mrs. Grabstein, I don't know if you want to pipe in here. Mrs. Grabstein worked a lot on the budget as far as the $15,500 per student, which is $235,000 in this first year. A great portion of that goes to the partner site to get them up and running, pay for full tuition. In subsequent years, the more sites that you open and the more you get closer to providing universal pre-K for all students, the more you kind of withhold and keep so that you pay your internal expenses for all the other things you incur, such as the salary, the director, there's a mentor teacher that's needed, and some of the other expenses that are requirements of the grant. Mrs. Grabstein?
I believe we're actually turning over the full 15,763 per student. We're turning that over to the partner site. So we will have the director's salary, the additional special ed teacher, and then a part-time, they call it master teacher, which between the director and the master teacher, they will be liaisons, is my understanding, to the partner site.
I think what we're leaving out here is that these 7 students weren't able to attend our school, correct? So these 7 students are now be able to attend a school with grant funds.
Correct. And I don't want to lose the sight of those 8 students at the partner site are Ridgefield Park residences whose families are currently paying tuition. And I
glad
don't
you
want to
said
say
that.
too much.
I'm
Right.
glad.
So Those 7 students' families currently pay tuition, which if successful, that tuition goes away. It's paid for by this grant.
And I understand and appreciate that. And Dr. Haines, the survey that you cited earlier of the 180 family with pre-K age children who want this, I don't think you would ever find anyone with pre-K age children who didn't want it, because I know I sent my children to pre-K and I had to pay for it, and it's a very big expense, and it's a great opportunity to be able to give universal pre-K to all of the students in Ridgefield Park. But President Fernandez, just as a point, this is 7 students of general ed. It's not, the disabled students that we are being asked to or required by the state to provide early childhood education to, because there are extenuating circumstances. This is more, quite honestly, for these 15 families, this is sort of like a bonus, and 7 of them are picked via a lottery system. So it's not need-based, it's not educational need-based, it's just a lottery that these 15 students win, until we get to the point where we can offer universal pre-K universally to the students, to the 4-year-olds in Ridgefield Park. Then it's an equity issue, right? So I'm just trying to understand all of the costs that are going in for this first 15, and do we have a plan to get us to the next 50, 100, 200? That's what that's what my questions are about.
Trustee McNeil?
So,
Hello?
sorry,
Hi, this is
Ms.
Ms.
Rodriguez, yeah.
Ms. Rodriguez. Yeah, so, Trustee McNeil, thank you very much for the questions. And Dr. Haines for explaining the process. I do have to respectfully disagree, in terms of being a bonus for a lot of parents. One of the things, this has been an initiative since like 2018 with pre-K on our way. There has been a push, and the state has, and the country has been pushing for universal pre-K, and this is just a baby step towards it. But it's also an investment. These students, these pre-K students, 3-4-year-olds are coming into a program that is going to be monitored by the state. You're going to have certified teachers. You're going to have a curriculum, a data-driven curriculum that's approved by the state. So these children are receiving pre-K, but the standards are that standards from when our kids were in kindergarten. They're going to be exposed to a curriculum, and it's like you're providing them with certain services and maybe intervention that maybe a couple of years from now we won't have to provide interventions for these students. You really don't know. That's just I've been a proponent for universal pre-K. I've had children in private pre-K, public pre-K, special ed pre-K, inclusion pre-K, and there is a need. And the way I see it in this is an investment. So if we spend that money now, we might not have to spend that money in other services for these children.
I understand, and I do agree that this is a benefit to the students for their long-term objective. I'm trying to understand what the program is, because the first year out with 15 students, it's very expensive. Even with,
and if we look at other districts, they start with small. You have to take baby steps to get into that big program, and I understand I have parents, mothers reaching out to me wanting their child in the pre-K. I think that the only thing we did poorly was advertise it. A lot of parents did not know about the lottery system. We do have the children. We just don't have the facility at the moment, and the district is moving towards acquiring the funds through these grants.
Right, I agree that every parent would want their child to have the eligibility to be enrolled. As I said, I'm just trying to understand quantify how much this year one costs and ensure that we have a go forward plan that expands it beyond 15 students to justify the additional expense that we're undertaking for our existing special needs students that are in district, and the removal of a classroom. We just voted on in buildings and grounds, someone to do a capacity study because we're doubling up in classrooms and are we using them effectively, and we're taking away another classroom. So I just wanted clarity on what it was we were being asked to approve, where we are headed. And I think, in public session, it's important to have this conversation so that the public can hear it as well. So I think that you've answered my questions, Dr. Haines. Thank you.
And Diane, I want to echo your sentiment in the sense that, but a little nuanced in the sense that I don't mind spending money, and I don't mind this big investment in this program and whatever cost is going to be associated. And in part due to Berlinda's pushing a long time ago, I've learned a lot about the importance of preschool and the long-term impact and the investment that it is. So I thank Berlinda for that. But, my guard goes up because I know that this, I didn't get on the board because the district was doing a good job with our monies. And so my guard goes up because I don't want staff members thrown at this program because we need a place for staff members. I don't want initiatives pushed through or curriculum that's bought and not used. And so my guard goes up with any new initiative. And so I think this conversation, it's good that we're having it in public so that the public can see that we really do question superintendent and any other decisions that are made. I'm sure the state monitor is glad we're asking all these questions. But going forward, I think we need to be even more, I don't want to say the word transparent because I don't want to accuse anybody of being pouty, but I came into this room very confused about this grant. I have more clarity now. I'm glad you answered the questions and I'm glad the questions were asked, but I don't, I hope going forward, I'm less cloudy about what's going to happen next and what the cost is going to be.
Well, I don't want to use costs and kids learning all in the same sentence. As Berlin trustee Rodriguez said it best, it's an investment in our kids. And yes, it comes at a cost of hiring a teacher to go from a program going from half day to full day for special needs children that I think would value that.
And Dr.
Yeah.
Haines explained that it's equity. That's and that's an issue that we've had in this district. The reason why we're going, to my understanding, from half a day to full day is because these half a day special needs classrooms are not full day. So part of the grant, it has to be, one of the conditions, it has to be full day for equity. And we've seen it in this district that there has been equity for our special needs population, for some of our general and education children. And I just had to say that it's the need to expand this program is for equity.
So I would like to just follow that up with a comment, because everything has cost associated with it, and education is an investment in children. And that's one of the reasons I ran for the board, right? Because we should be investing in our children and educating them to the best of our ability. The equity comment is the state requirement, right? So we have the special needs children that are in pre-K, they are being brought to equity. The 15 students that will benefit in year one are clearly receiving a benefit that the rest of the town does not have equity. And that is the cost, President Fernandez, that I was inquiring about. So in order to start up the program, the initial investment is the additional teacher required to bring all of the special needs up to full day. It's the master teacher, which just came up that I don't think we heard about. And we're paying the assistant director for pre-K, which was supposed to be grant covered and is not. So year one is a very large investment in 15 students and in this program. And to Dr. Martinez's point, before we file the November grant application, it would be great to have an information session to say, here is what we are trying to, here is what we are applying for next school year and how many more students it will benefit. Because the more people you add, via grant that goes through, the cost per student of these other things we had to do goes down. And that's what I'm trying to understand. So I think that I'm there, that I understand what we're doing, but I definitely would like, before we apply for the November grant, to have these conversations in advance of having to vote on them.
So, and again, Mr. Neal, all points taken. Dr. Martinez leaned over to me and said, hey, can you summarize? So here we go. Feel free to comment. Last year at this time, the board engaged on a majority vote to approve the goal for early childhood education that was from birth to age 5. And as part of that, as Mrs. Rodriguez said, part of that umbrella goal was to start on the path to provide universal pre-K to all of our students in our district, which is a huge need in this district. Second, there are cost issues associated with this first year that the district will incur. The assistant director, the additional classroom teacher to provide for special needs disabled students. So yes, there are costs. I'd ask the board to understand that on a 3 to 5 year goal, to kind of try to disassociate some of the early costs that we incur with the bigger goal of providing universal pre-K to all students. Administrators come and go, you know, in the state of New Jersey, 2 to 3 years. So to say that we will or won't approve a program based on individual people, the board is the underlying unity that holds the district together. The members of this board as trustees in a governing body, you're the ones who vote on a 5-year goal, and you're the guys who are going to be here to commit to it and make sure universal pre-K. So try to associate those two different things, the immediate transitory versus the long-term benefit to the entire district. Point 3.
That's exactly what I was asking, was what is the long-term, what are the steps to get us to our final goal? I understand this is the first step, and I'm there.
Okay, and so part of the summary I was going to say is this Saturday, this is a shameless plug to the rest of the audience out there. This Saturday, starting at 9 o'clock in the high school library, we have a board retreat in which we'll talk about board goals. And Mrs. McNeil, I would heartily support you framing, because I take to heart your comments that the communication and how we as a governing body enter into good deliberative decision-making, like I think we did sometimes tonight, how we grow that to more capacity so that more of our board members feel they have a stake owner holdership of moving forward with the decisions. That to me is a great goal. And lastly, yeah, this is a proof of concept. I wish we could open it for 30 or 45 students. we're not there. We're taking baby steps because in the past, some of these decisions that were made in the district ran into financial issues. And we don't want to repeat the same mistakes. We want to learn from history and move forward in a successful proof of concept to this district that we can do this in a partner site with 15 students. There's my summary.
That was great. Any other questions, concerns about its insurance?
Yes, I had one comment. I would just like to, as I see that we have FI 37 transportation audit, I think for our next finance meeting, I would ask you, Mr. President, to please see if we can have the information put together of where we are with the rolling stock, the buses, what current leases we have out there, what's expiring, what has expired, what will expire, just to get an idea, a good picture of that, and along with the current expenses we're putting into these buses. These buses should now be somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 7 to 11 years old, and maybe be able to make some good decisions on either keeping these buses and or upgrading them, which would lower maintenance costs and maybe albeit add leasing expenses. Just some things we should look at, make sure we have the best and safest possible methods of transportation for the children that we're taking around throughout the county and out and even further. If you could do that, be great.
Thank you, trustee Fartros, for your comments. Are we, do we still need somebody to second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take the vote. Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes, but I'll be an abstention on FI 6 and 7.
Mr. Phytros.
Yes,
There's,
to all those that I have to abstain from, which were quite a few.
Right, FI 16 to 18, FI 22, FI 26, 30 to 32, 45 and 57.
That's it? Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes to all, but I'm an abstention on FI 26.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes to all, but I'm an abstention on FI 6 and 7.
and President Fernandez.
Yes. The agenda, will trustee Gibbons please move?
Yes, I'd like to move CR 1, 2, and 3.
Are there any questions on CR 1 to CR 3?
Didn't you need a second? I'll second it.
Okay, I'm going to take the vote. Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes.
For the personnel agenda, there are some changes that I'm going to announce verbally to the resolutions that were already listed. One of the board members asked correctly, Mrs. McNeil, these are trying times to hire teachers. There's not a large candidate pool. It's hard to find really good, talented people. And yet by the same token, our principals worked their tails off over the past couple of weeks to try to fulfill all the open positions that we have in the schools. And you'll see through some of the amendments here and also the new business agendas that we are opening fully staffed, except for some of the aid positions. So the first change is P number 3 on page 1, Susan Hayward, because we did find a science teacher. We will be releasing her to her new district on September 1. P19, P3 Karen Rapp, because she does not have a full credential, as I talked about already, she will be paid as a substitute teacher pending receipt of her certificate. P21 on page 4, remove Ava Malone. Here shows some of the challenges, and I need to give a huge shout out and kudos to Director of Special Services, Michelle Gonzalez, who has worked her tail off endlessly trying to fill the TA positions. We pay our TAs $25,000 and they come and go and we churn through them constantly to her detriment. I will bring that up as a discussion point with the board. So P4, this person already resigned. Even though we offered the position, she declined since we put her on the resolution. P29, page 8, remove Barbara Otero as a lunch aide because we hired her as a teacher assistant. P21, which is on page 4, is removed. P29 on page 8 is removed.
Got that? Hold.
I so move P1 to P32, and we subtracted P21 and P29, as well as P3 and P4.
Well, P3 and P19 were amended as I stated. That is everything.
With the
A
amendment.
second. Are there any questions on P1 to P32?
Yes,
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I'm sorry. Just a question. I see you have the unaffiliated personnel, P22, but you don't have all the people listed that are unaffiliated in the district. Seems to be a common practice. And if we're not going to, if they're not up here because they're not getting something, that should at least be shown. And if they've gotten something already, that should be shown. We should have complete transparency for everybody that's a unaffiliated personnel. With that being said, I don't think this is a complete list. President Fernandez, can you weigh in on this? I mean, I think there are at least 1 or 2 people missing off this list.
Only because this is a personnel matter. I don't know if talking about this in public is the stage to have that conversation regarding the list. If this does need to be amended, I definitely will contact Carrie about it.
I don't think it's inappropriate to make a statement that it's not a complete list. I think that's factual. That's all. So.
It's a factual statement that it's not a full list of unaffiliated employees.
Correct. So therefore, if it's not a complete full list, I think maybe we should either amend it or, move it to the next meeting where it can be a complete full list.
Are you considering tabling this?
I am. If it's not a complete list, then yes, I am. It's my thoughts.
Carrie, do you mind weighing in on this, Mrs. Wright?
I'm not sure that there's a legal concern. It sounds more of a practical concern that Nick has in terms of wanting to make sure that all of the employees in a particular category are on the agenda at the same time.
Correct.
I guess, Carrie, my question would be, if they're not on this list, I'm assuming their salaries didn't change? And is that okay to disclose in public?
So salaries of all your staff members are public. It's public information. They're public employees. Their salaries are publicly available. So there's nothing inappropriate with talking about their salaries or putting their salaries on the agenda for approval by the board, if that's the question.
I mean, the other question is that one of the people that's on here is somebody that Little Ferry pays part of their salary, and I don't see them on at all. So that begs the question of why not whatever the case may be here, why is it not on the list?
If I could just comment on about that. This was discussed in the Personnel Committee as well. And it was decided that the individual you're talking about could be added at some later date following further discussions about the personnel matter. There's no reason that these people should wait again another month or whatever.
Then I guess it would have been nice to have that person put on there with nothing or to be determined. But again, this isn't the first time. This has happened in the past. And I think it's, especially when the Little Ferry's paying part of this person's salary, that it should be transparent. And why is this every year the same issue? Because our number just keeps going up every year. So why am I as a Little Ferry rep, paying this person more, and meanwhile you're paying in essence less every year? That math doesn't work. So it should be on the list. The list is not accurate. It does not represent all the unaffiliated people. I'm suggesting that we table it, and until we can get the complete list, which is not anything out of the realm of reasonableness, and move forward. Otherwise, amend it now. I mean, I guess, one second. Let me finish continue to finish my point. Dr. Haines, you made this recommendation, right? This is under your recommendation, correct? Our P22?
The appropriate answer there is this recommendation, like many of my recommendations, come in consultation with Ms. Grabstein because it's a financial recommendation, and Mr. Demikoff because Mr. Demikoff makes all financial decisions in the district.
Okay, so it's a team. So,
yes.
I mean, it's fair to say, and there's just not one person missing, there's a second person missing, which I'm assuming that young gentleman or lady either got something and earlier in the year or whatever the case may be, but they should be on this list. Everybody should be accounted for on the list. Whatever it is, if it's a 0, if it's a 5%, if it's 2%, I mean, just eliminating them is not right. And it truly does not represent the list of unaffiliated members. So I am requesting that we push this to the next meeting. And that's my recommendation. It can go for vote. If it passes, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. But I just want to get on the record. This is not the full list.
If you decide to either table or amend this resolution, I will overturn it.
Okay. Thank you for the heads up.
I'm just telling you, so.
Okay. Well, and I am, which is my right to ask that this be put up for a vote. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. But I'm not going to just sit here and watch this go on constantly. This is a constant issue here. No, please. This is not a 1-year thing. This has been a 5-6 year thing with the same individual. Bottom line is list them and put down 0. But don't not list people. It's because we're not being, this is going back to the whole purpose of being transparent. And we're not being transparent here. Maybe in your perspective, we're being transparent, but not for me. Because we are paying part of that salary. We are paying part of that salary. And it at least should be put up there of what portion of the salary is being paid by Little Ferry. That should at least be somewhere on these papers. And it's not.
Mr. Petros, so
yes.
Seeing both sides of this issue, could I, as the acting superintendent, suggest that we pass this resolution? Because if you don't, the monitor will overturn it anyway. So you pass this resolution with the agreement that we will replace this chart on the next board agenda on September 21st with all.
Unfortunately, I cannot agree to that because I've tried to pass other things as others have on the board, and he'll still overturn. If he overturns it, he overturns it. But I want to get see if we get my request on the record and the vote. And if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. but I'm asking for a vote.
Nick, are you making a motion to?
Yes, I am. I'm making,
Okay.
A motion to table that resolution, what number?
What is the resolution number, Nick?
number
22,
22.
P 22.
Have a second to table.
Again,
Second. A vote to table this resolution. What is, it's P 22. Mr. Phytros,
I'm a yes. Let's table it.
Mr. Gibbons,
no.
Mrs. McNeil,
No.
Dr. Martinez,
No, but I'm curious for further discussion in the future.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
No.
is she there?
She said no.
President Fernandez, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cathcart,
I am an extension.
President Fernandez.
I'm a no with the stipulant that this has to have an amendment to it in our next board meeting, a correction to have the full list.
Okay, so we're not tabling this motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just make a comment on the personnel motions overall, or not motions, resolutions overall. Dr. Haines, thank you for giving us the feedback that we are starting fully staffed. My concern was everything that I was hearing in the news about teacher shortages, and I am happy that you are able to report that we do not have that issue in Ridgefield Park, and we will be ready to go for our students in September. So thank you.
Again, it's a kudos to our administrators who spent weeks and weeks, sweating to get to open to this. So when you see them, thank them.
Go ahead.
We have to vote on the full personnel. So it was Mr. Gibbons was a first and Mr. Cathcart seconded. So Mr. Gibbons,
A yes, but an
exception
abstention.
on, right.
I'm sorry, on P 17, P 23, and P 25. And again, we're moving P 1 to 32 with a change on P 21, P 29, 3, and 4.
Mr. Cathcart, Mr. Phytros,
I'm just looking yes to all except for P 22.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes.
Mrs. Grabstein, did P 22 pass?
Yes, it did.
Thank you.
I'd like to close this time of resolutions, moving on to citizens' comments on off agenda items.
Mr. DeSantis,
Good evening.
Good evening. Well, a lot in 5 minutes, but I'm fully in favor of a preschool program. It's something that's been needed for a long time. And I just have a few comments on it. Number one is that the the grant application should not gone in without board approval. Certainly. I mean, the superintendent has his job. He runs the district. This is your job to approve those things. And that really should not have happened, but it has. So we are where we are. 15 students. I hope it's not one classroom, because everything that I know, to the extent I know, preschool classrooms are half that size. So we're talking about a teacher. Are we really talking about 2 teachers and a couple of aides? And we have a coordinator. It's a lot of money. And I know we balance things, students first. Is the program good? Then can we afford it? Is it fair to taxpayers? But we've got a heck of a timeline here. I mean, 30 days to find a partner and 31 days to have a program in place. And even if the partner is doing the curriculum, we've got to be happy with it. So that's a heck of a job. This should have been months ago, Dr. Haines, before we had a coordinator or anything. Now we're in this position. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. If you can pull it off, that's wonderful, but it's going to be years before we recap the money on this. And we are spending a lot of money on litigation. We're losing a science coordinator. Yeah, money always plays into it. That's the ugly story. But we know also that administrators can't go ahead sometimes without the board's permission. When that rears its ugly head, things can get very messed up. We know. I'm hoping that it works out. If not, we've got a coordinator, a assistant or deputy coordinator to no program at all. I don't know if that person will go down back to 7th and 8th grade, because that's the position that's not fully staffed yet. And it's not just our 7th and 8th graders, a program for them, but we really don't have that Little Ferry liaison now. So those kids are going to be kind of really being left in the dark. And it's not fair. So, you know, it's not really a criticism as much as it is, now is this going to get fixed? And I do appreciate, Mrs. Grabstein, that you did answer some questions tonight directly, and Dr. Haines, you also. And I'm concerned about this. We really got to take care of those 7th and 8th graders, and we're in for a penny, in for a pound, I guess, on preschool, but not completely. And I hope that this can be worked out. This is the kind of stuff that should have happened at a board retreat. I know we watched a lot of videos and still good discussions, but things like our future problems with enrollment, the buildings, and things like this, those are really, in my opinion, those are really what board retreats are for. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mrs. Malou?
Good evening, miss. How are you?
Oh, it's a long night here. Okay. Janet Malou, 163 East Grand. 7th and 8th. They mentioned teams. If you're talking teams, are we talking teams of, let's say, I don't know how many kids we have in those grades, 50 kids, 100 kids with all the same teacher? Or are we talking just the fact that all the math teachers are going to coordinate, all the English teachers will coordinate? What frustrates me is that you're trying to bring in middle school concepts without understanding middle school or middle school concepts. So I personally would like a clarification on that. The Character Strong program sounds like a great program. We've had programs like this. Heroes and Cool Kids was an amazing program. My kid was in it and actually dropped AP Bio in order to stay in it. And I agreed with her. Okay, it wasn't that important for her to have AP bio, and if she was out a day, she was told she'd miss 5 days. She said, I don't want to give that program up. I said, so don't. Another program that they might want to consider that our middle school had in place was Student of the Month. Student of the Month had nothing to do with academics. It had to do with character and doing right things. So again, I will say, I had 32 years at the middle school level. I was trained in team leadership at corporate level conferences. And again, I've said many a time, I have no problem sitting down and trying to throw some ideas out, but it's obvious through the years, it's not really wanted. About the only person that ever sat down and we kicked things around was Diane Thiemann. Again, I think you're making a very big mistake by, you're going to lose her, and it's to the detriment of our kids. The summer program, great program. I would like to see, now that the town has spent a fortune on a nature preserve, that maybe for next year's program, some of what they've done down at the Meadowlands could actually happen in our own preserve right up the street. I know we're looking to do a study of facilities. I am going to ask that this district consider re-registering every child, because I don't believe that every kid that's coming here lives in district or in Little Ferry. And I think even if we identify 10, 15 kids that are here illegally, that goes a long way down the line. I don't believe that the kids here, too many New York plates, too many kids getting off the commuter buses with backpacks. I really think you got to look into that before you worry about, you know, the rest of the stuff that's going to go with all this new housing coming in. I had something else on my head. You know, I always found that looking at what my peers do is more helpful than seeing, you know, like specialists come in or things like that. And what I did was I sat down the past few weeks and I started looking at what other districts, what other Board of Eds do by watching their Board of Ed videos, their meetings. And I think this board needs some homework. Start watching them. MAWA has this amazing program on how they put together a 5-year plan. The stakeholders that were brought in is what struck me. And MAWA has a good system to begin with, but it's something that this district should consider as we move forward. Fort Lee turned down this sex ed health program. And there was a room full of angry people. And they actually listened to what the parents and the community had to say. They responded. They answered the questions right then and there. And in the end, one of the representatives from the community got up and said, look, we will work with you. Let a few parents get together. We will work with your group, providing you don't vote it in tonight. It was rushed. Gee, same thing here. No, you're going to cut me off, but I'm going to keep talking. This is important. They turned around and they agreed to not vote it in. And this small group is working with them so that there's some kind of agreement between the community and the school. And then they will re-vote for it. And the parents actually said, we will make sure the community agrees to it. That's what you need here. You need to start stopping this form that you're using. It just doesn't make sense. And Mr. Cathcart, you know, past history, questions occurred, not just you go back a few years ago. Those meetings we had that were supposed to be workshops, they were no different than this, and they were wrong. Think about it.
Susan DeSantis.
Good evening, Miss.
"15 Homestead Place. First, I'd like to talk about the pre-K. 15 students is quite a bit of students. I've experienced 2 different districts with pre-K. And there's 6 to 8 kids to a classroom with 1 teacher, sometimes 2, and at least 2 aides. We all know that Little Ferry was trying to build their own high school, trying to pull out of Ridgefield Park. They have a standing committee for regionalization. They owe us money. Mr. Demikoff, could you tell me how much the Little Ferry tuition is and where it stands?
There's been no change, Mrs. DeSantis. It's still at $1,042,725. That's in litigation.
So it's still $1 million plus. Okay. I have been told that Little Ferry board member got together with the superintendent and went to the Little Ferry mayor and a councilman who happens to have a brother who is a state senator on the education committee, and has asked him to go to the Commissioner of Education and have you removed, Mr. Demikoff. And if you aren't aware of this, I would really like you to be aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Leslie Gottlieb.
464A, Liberty Street, Little Ferry, all this talk about the partner site. Have you actually identified a site, or is it still being looked for?
I'll answer all questions together at the end.
Okay. And if the site is out of district, are you gonna consider providing transportation for those students? And is this a place that has other classes for kids, or are we gonna have a standalone class there of our 8 + 7 students? And the last question again is, who is going to handle the coordination with Little Ferry for the incoming 8th graders, since Ms. Steeman is not? And that's all I have.
Anybody we need to promote? Okay. No.
Okay. So a couple of community members asked the same question about our receiving Little Ferry students into our junior senior high school. Last year, there were only, as reported to me by Mr. Scarfield, last year there were only 2 meetings with Mr. Scarfield, even though we did run the Scarlet Shadowing program. This year, Mrs. Cavins has already met with Mr. Scarfield yesterday and is working on that program for 7th and 8th graders, which reminds me of something that didn't come up tonight. Mrs. Cavins was a middle school principal. She has worked with 7th and 8th graders, and when she was in this district in a previous career as a supervisor for 7 through 12, she worked intimately, and that's why she developed a love and a joy of working with junior high school students and became a 7th and 8th grade principal before coming to us for 7 through 12. She's the one who brought Character Strong program to the 7th and 8th graders, and she did that, and again, demonstrating her collaboration with with the elementary principals to work on what was already successful in sixth grade and helping those sixth graders bridge the transition to a program that they already knew about Character Strong and mental health and safety. So she's helping to make that bridge without even day one of the school opening. The Meadowlands, yes, we did incorporate the nature preserve into the Meadowlands programs that we offered to the students this summer. The board grant that was approved, which was a disappointment to me that it had to be done while we did not have a board meeting. Still, as there was a resolution on the June agenda that allowed Mr. Demikoff and myself and Mrs. Scrabstein to make preliminary approvals of things as long as they came on this resolution. That's a detriment to not having a July board meeting. We haven't had a board meeting in 2 months. So yes, that was disappointing. That didn't happen. I'm happy it's on the board agenda tonight. Finally, as far as the board goals and everything, that many of the community members have come to the microphone and correctly talked about the board getting together and doing substantial goals and having meetings and commitments. I have to say, I'm really proud of this board for this Saturday. It's the first time that I understand this board gets together, not just for district goals. We did 3 district goals last year. This Saturday is about board goals. And I, for one, am very proud and excited. Some of us get paid, Mr. Demikoff, Mrs. Wright, Mrs. Grabstein, we get paid. These people get paid so much money to show up on a Saturday. This will be the 4th time that they meet with board retreats and everything else to come together and decide board goals that can steer this district forward. So I'm pretty proud of them.
You have to say you're joking about how much we get paid because people will believe.
That's
that we
right,
get
right.
paid.
I'm sorry. For those of you who don't know, I'm a board member too. We get 0 to be a board member.
Dr. Haynes, can I just ask for a little clarity on the question of that Ms. Gottlieb asked?
Sure.
In terms of a name, are you saying that the person who will be responsible for that transition of Little Ferry 7th, 8th graders into the high school and whatever programming around that will be Ms. Cavins?
So she'll be the principal of the school. No, you're approving the dean of students for 7th and 8th grade. That person, that dean of students for 7th and 8th grade, will be responsible for coordinating those transition programs.
Don't need to make an amendment to the job description? Or that's implied?
I believe that's implied in the 7th and 8th grade job description that you'll be approving.
Moving on to new business, would trustee Rodriguez please move faculties and programs?
Sure, I so move FP 14 and FP 15.
Second.
Are there any questions on FP 14 and FP 15 new business? Seeing none. Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, you're muted. Okay, Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes. Finance and insurance. Dr. Martinez, if you don't mind moving.
I so move FI 58 and 59.
Yeah, me.
Are there any questions on FI 58 and FI 57 new business? Seeing none, Dr. Martinez,
Yes, it's 59 though.
58, is it 58?
58 and 59.
Yeah, 58. Oh, it's 58 and 50. Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes to 58.
I'm sorry, say again?
Yes to
58,
50.
because you can't vote on the other one. Okay. Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes. Moving on to personnel, with trustee Gibbons.
I so move P 33 to P 40.
I second it.
Dr.
Is
Haynes,
there
can
any
you just,
questions on P33 to P40 new business?
yeah, Dr. Haynes, is the only one of these positions that are being hired new, the one we talked about earlier for the pre-K?
Grant. It's 37, correct. It's 37.
And the other ones are just filling open positions?
Well, resignations and filling open positions, mostly for TAs in the district, correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart, Mr. Phytros, abstention on P33, 36, and 38.
Okay, yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Dr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and President Fernandez.
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Second, bye.
Good night.